Welcome back. 3 things you can do to improve stress urinary incontinence. I think you know what that is, but in case somebody watching this isn't quite sure, stress urinary incontinence is leakage of urine with physical activity like running, jumping, coughing, sneezing, laughing. Maybe now you can relate. 3 things you can do. 1, there's just no way around it. Bladder control is a fitness issue. So to fix it, you have to apply a fitness solution. That means you have to do some work, a little bit of exercise. It's not a huge commitment, but it has to be a consistent small commitment. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. That's what everyone who applies Pilates, Pilates, commits to. And guess what? 80% or at least 50% improved in 28 days of training. That seems like a good deal, especially if it helps you avoid a surgery. So there's no way around it. You got to get those muscles working properly. They have to be fast enough and they have to be strong enough. Those are 2 different pieces of pelvic floor performance that need to be considered in the way you train. Pilates uses a plyometric principle that makes the pelvic floor faster and stronger. So that's the first thing. Sorry for the bad news. You got to do a little bit of work. But number 2 kind of relates to number 1 in that as you get stronger, as your pelvic floor gets faster, you will become more aware of your pelvic floor. And doing the Pilates movements, which are all core exercises, you'll become more aware of your core in the mundane tasks of daily living. You'll become more aware of your core in everything you do. And just being aware of that allows you to engage your core in anticipation of a behavior, of an activity. Before you get out of a chair, you can become habitually inclined to engage your core and then do the movement. It can just become a habit for you. And why is that good? Because every time you engage your core, the pelvic floor also engages. The pelvic floor is the floor of the core. So just becoming aware of your pelvic floor, aware of the core, will cause you to automatically engage those muscles on a regular basis. An interesting study out of Japan showed that Japanese men that had a longer stride while they walked tended to have less erectile dysfunction. And that's kind of an odd thing to be correlated. Why would their stride length relate to that? Well, it's because a longer stride creates more hip extension, which creates more pelvic floor engagement, which favorably affects the function of the autonomic nervous system, which controls their ability to get and maintain an erection. And so it's not mysterious. It's just that most people are unaware of the relationship between the muscles we use to exercise and the component of the nervous system that controls things like the bladder and the gut and the liver and the heart and the lungs. It's called the autonomic nervous system. So it's that relationship you're exploiting every time you use your core. And Joseph Pilates commented on this. He's the fellow that invented Pilates, or whose name is chosen to represent this incredible form of exercise called Pilates, that Phylates was kind of taken from by sticking an F in there, and I had to name it. I just stuck an F in the word Pilates for pelvic floor Pilates. Anyways, I digress. Joseph Pilates commented that Pilates is about teaching people to move differently and that every movement should begin with the core. Well, that's pretty good advice. If you do that, your pelvic floor gets exercise even when you're not intentionally exercising it. So it's a good habit to develop, become aware of your core and use your core in all activities. Think about how many times a day you get out of a chair or sit back down on a chair. First the core, then the movement. Make it a habit. So that's number 2. What was number 1? Do you still remember? You have to do some intentional exercise, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. Number 2, become aware of your core. You'll use your pelvic floor all the time. And number 3 might surprise you. Number 3 is that you shouldn't avoid the things that make you leak. It's somewhat intuitive to tell yourself, well, when I jog, I leak urine, therefore it must be hard on my body and I shouldn't jog anymore. Kind of convenient, right? That's exactly the opposite. I'm impressed by how many women jump on trampolines, maybe with their children, but maybe just for exercise. It's really remarkable how many women come into the office saying, I leak urine when I jump on a trampoline. This is a problem. What can I do? And so the message is that activity that's causing you to leak is simply revealing a weakness. The activity that causes you to experience incontinence is just showing you where you need to focus your effort. And it's because it's challenging that mechanism. Jumping on a trampoline challenges the pelvic floor because the pelvic floor has to react in anticipation of the tremendous increase in intra-abdominal pressure, which impinges upon the bladder and will force urine out the urethra if it's not closed tight enough. Your pelvic floor has to be able to respond in anticipation of that force. And if it's not able to, you leak urine. But it is the activity that causes you to leak urine that actually is a good provoker of pelvic floor activity. Does that make sense? So you don't want to give up those things that cause you to leak. Those are the things that might be inconvenient or uncomfortable, but those are the things that naturally engage the pelvic floor, and you should be doing them. And you should do them until you don't leak, and then you should continue doing them because they're good for your pelvic floor. I hope that was interesting. 3 things you can do to improve stress, urinary incontinence, and hopefully avoid surgery. I'm Dr. Bruce Crawford. What else do you want to hear about? Please leave it in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. That would be good. That would help me. And we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.